here we are with Chapter 7 of The Arm of the Starfish by Madeleine. Typhoon Cutter held up his hand. "It's all right, Adam. She's here. We have her, safe and sound. But, wait." The word lashed at Adam like the flick of a whip. "You will see her in a few minutes, but there are certain things you need to know first. Drink your coffee. Wake up." The wailing continued. "She's all right," Typhoon Cutter said. "She has only had a frightening experience. She is caught in a web of events that she is too young to understand, and she is being used as a pawn. You will take her back to her father, but you will not say from where." "But, be quiet. Listen, I have told you that O'Keefe is a great scientist." "Yes, but, like many other scientists, his wisdom does not extend beyond his work. You yourself know of scientists who have been spies, who have sold their country down the river." "Well, yes, but—" Abruptly the crying stopped. "Please!" Adam was determined that this time not be cut off. "Why is Polly here? How did you get her?" Typhoon Cutter held up his hand, speaking tolerantly. "Hold it, boy. One thing at a time." "But how did you get her? Did you get her from the plane?" "Not very likely, is it? Has it occurred to you that you may not be the only one interested in her safety?" "Her father is. He must be out of his mind with worry." "Oh?" Typhoon Cutter gave a thin laugh. "I hardly think so. It was her father and his inconsistencies we were talking about when you interrupted me." He paused, as though to give the boy a chance to say sorry, but as Adam was silent, he continued. "Let us simply say that we managed, and with no little difficulty, I might add, to rescue her." "From whom?" "Don't you know?" "No, sir, I don't." "Then you'll have to find out, won't you? I can hardly spell it out for you more clearly. But this is not the moment. This is not, at the moment, the point. The point is what it means, what all of it means to the United States. To do O'Keefe justice, I do not think he would betray his own country deliberately. But I have been instructed to see that he does not do it even inadvertently. I am asking you to help me." Adam nodded and took another swallow of coffee. Typhoon Cutter looked at him and smiled tightly. "It has come to my attention that I am sometimes compared to a spider. I do not find the comparison entirely invidious. It is my intention to spin a net and to pull it tight around anyone who does not put the interests of our country first. As for you, my boy, the moment you were chosen to work for Dr. O'Keefe, you became important. You were important enough to be watched by both sides, our own and the enemy's, from the moment you entered the airport in New York. I sent Callie as my personal emissary. I have every faith in my daughter. She has never let me down. I hope that I will be able to say the same thing about you. You do care for your country, don't you, Adam?" "Of course, sir." "Then you must do as I say." The thin cry came again and ceased. "I have told you that O'Keefe's child is being used as a pawn. For the moment she is safe. She does not know where she is, and she is being blindfolded. This is for her own protection, as well as ours, and yours. You are far more useful to us alive than dead, my boy, and I think perhaps you are not quite aware of how many people are aware of you, and the fact that you are going to Gao. If you will do as I say, I think I can protect you. If not—" Typhoon Cutter shrugged. "I am half dead with sleep," Adam thought. "I don't understand anything. I don't want to understand. I want to sleep." Typhoon Cutter's high voice probed like a needle into his fatigue. "Are you going to help us, Adam?" Think about the child." "I am." "If you could not trust me, do you think that I could trust you with a child?" "But she's not your child." "No, she's a pawn of dangerous, ruthless men. As I have said, I do not think that O'Keefe is fully cognizant of what he is doing. But there are others, men like the egregious Cannon." "Well, what about him, sir? Do you think highly of someone who would deliberately send a child onto that plane?" "But if she hadn't gone to the washroom—" "Don't be naive, boy. That simply made it a little easier." Adam looked at Typhoon Cutter. Yes, there was indeed the resemblance of a spider. Then he thought of Canon Tallis, the body portly but firm, his piercing gray eyes, the bald head. "But you can't go by people's looks," he thought groggily. Just because I prefer teddy bears to spiders. Why does Canon Tallis have no eyebrows? He asked without thinking. I believe he does what he can to broadcast some story of losing all his hair after some extraordinary physical bravery in Korea. This kind of thing does happen occasionally, I believe. However, I am inclined to doubt it. Tallis, you'll find, likes to take the easy way and to receive credit for daydreams. If he has done anything braver than kowtow to the Bishop of Gibraltar, I have yet to hear of it. Now, Adam, I know that you are tired, and so for the moment my instructions will be simple. You are to take Polly back to her father at the Avenida Palace. You will be driven to a central point from which you will be able to find your way to the hotel without trouble. I cannot risk taking you directly there, since my chauffeur, Molek, is one of my key men would be recognized. You will tell O'Keefe that you were half asleep when you opened the door to loud knocking, that you were grabbed and blindfolded, that you were taken you know not where, and interrogated. Since you knew nothing, what you know is nothing, I assure you, there was very little you could tell. You were not in any way abused. You were put into a car, and you were ungagged and unblindfolded, and you stood on the street with Polyhymnia O'Keefe. Understand? Yes, sir. Take her immediately to the Avenida Palace. From there, I presume you will proceed to Gaia. Callie, or I, probably Callie, will get in touch with you there and give you further instructions. In the meantime, you are to learn as much about O'Keefe and what he is doing as possible. Since you will be working with him directly on the Starfish experiments, this ought to be a good deal. Don't be afraid. The embassy knows you are here. If you do as you are told, you will be perfectly safe. If you do not do as you are told, I cannot answer for the consequences. Swaying, Adam finished the bitter dregs of his coffee. But I have not done as I was told, he thought. I opened the door. I let Callie in. And whether I did right or wrong, I don't know. Whether this man is right or wrong, I don't know. His eyelids started to droop. Typhoon Cutter rose. Take him to the car, Callie. The child is already there. Am I to go with them, Daddy? No. Molek will take care of it. Goodbye, Adam. Remember what I have told you. We will be in touch with you soon. Yes, sir, Adam said. Goodbye. As he and Callie reached the front door, she stopped and turned to him, putting one hand lightly on his arm. Adam. Then her arms were around him, her face tilted upward, her lips against his. Callie was not the first girl he had kissed, but now he was no longer a schoolboy. He was a man, his arms tightened around Callie's slender body. She turned her face away. We have to go now, Adam. Holding his hand, she took him out of the house and up the steps to where the limousine was waiting for them. The chauffeur murmured something to Callie, who turned to Adam, saying, You are to sit in front with Molek. The O'Keefe child mustn't know you're in the car until you're let out. She paused, then whispered, Adam, oh, Adam, darling, you must not move or speak in any way to let her know that you're in the car. Molek will silence you if you do. And Adam, you won't like it. You wouldn't like it. The chauffeur opened the front door of the car and it shut it on Adam with efficient quietness. Climbed in behind the wheel, looked darkly at the boy, and put his finger in warning against his lips. Callie echoed the gesture, then turned her hand and put the tips of her fingers against her lips. There was a grinding of gears and the car was off. Molek drove swiftly, skillfully turning, winding, so that Adam was convinced that no matter how complex the pattern of Lisbon's streets might be, Molek was deliberately making them more confusing, so that the boy would never be able to retrace his steps. As they moved deeper into the awakening city, there were more people abroad, and Adam heard the hawking of lottery tickets. Molek swerved around a cumbersome double-decker bus, down a dark alley lighted by only a high-flapping laundry. As Adam turned to make sure that Polly was truly in the back seat, the side of Adam's hand came down with a sharp thwack on his knee. The pain took him by surprise, but he managed not to cry out, though tears rushed uncontrollably to his eyes, and he blinked in fury, gritting his teeth. He tried to listen for any sound from behind him, but could hear nothing. He became certain that Polly was not in the car. Out of the corner of his eye he glanced at Malek. The face under the visored chauffeur's cap was set and sullen, and his hands on the steering wheel were enormous and covered with curling black hair. Perhaps Malek was a useful person to have working for one, but he gave Adam no sense of confidence in the present situation. He had a feeling that it would not displease Malek to bring that massive hand down in a clip on the back of his neck, that causing pain would incite rather than deter the chauffeur. Adam determined not to move or make a sound no matter what happened. Ritz, Malek grunted suddenly, and pulled the car over to the curb in a quick stop. As Adam saw the great modern bulk of a luxury hotel ahead of him, the chauffeur leaped from the front seat with the powerful swiftness of a Doberman pinscher and opened the door to the back. Adam turned to see him snatching a blindfold and gag from Polly and thrust her out of the car and onto the street, where she gave a strange, strangled moan. "Go," Malek said between his teeth. Adam did not need urging. He pushed the handle of the door down and out, and as he slammed it, Malek shot off down the street. Adam caught Polly as she started to fall. "Adam!" she cried in a choked gasp. "Adam!" He held her firmly, disregarding the stares of the people walking down the narrow mosaic sidewalk and having to step around them into the street in order to pass. "Are you all right, Polly? Are you all right?" The child gave a great, shuddering sob and managed to stand on her own feet, though Adam continued to support her with his arm. "It's all right, Polly. You're all right now," he kept saying. Polly continued the great, choking, sobbing breaths, and her hand clutched Adam's frantically, although he could see that she was making great effort at self-control. Her set, white face was disturbingly reminiscent of her father's. "Polly," he said, "we'll get a taxi and we'll go to the Avenida Palace." Polly shook her head and managed to say through shudders, "Not a taxi. It isn't safe. We're right at the Ritz. Take me in. I know the concierge." "But your father is at the Avenida Palace. We can't go there alone. They might... Please, Adam, take me to the Ritz." In order to calm her, Adam nodded in assent and, with his arm still holding her, for he was not at all certain that she was able to walk alone, led her down the hill the short distance to the hotel. "Good, it's Joaquin," Polly said as they came up to the doorman. Her voice became stronger, and she said, sounding almost cheerful, what Adam recognized as "good morning" in Portuguese. In the great lobby, she turned left at the concierge desk. Behind it sat a man reading a newspaper. "Arcangelo!" Polly cried, her voice rising in a note of hysteria. The man looked at her and said something in Portuguese, said "wait" in English, and picked up his phone, breaking into Portuguese again. After a moment, another uniformed man came into the concierge's booth, and Arcangelo left, without a word, to join Adam and Polly. "Upstairs," he said, and walked ahead of them to one of the elevators. "But we shouldn't," Adam started as the elevator doors shut on them. "Wait," the concierge said again. There was no point now in telling Polly that they should be going, whether by taxi or on foot, to the Avenida Palace. There was no point in telling Polly that they might be walking into some kind of trap. There was no point in doing anything but keeping his mouth closed and seeing what happened next. Never before in Adam's life had situations constantly been taken out of his hands as they had ever since he had left the known safety of Woods Hole. Never had his personal decisions seemed to mean less, his intelligence and his will shoved so to one side. Indeed, the only decision he seemed to have made in this entire adventure was to open the door of the hotel room at the Avenida Palace to Callie, and whether this was the best or the worst thing he had done, he still had no way of knowing. The concierge led them down a wide hall and unlocked the door to one of the rooms, holding it open for them. Polly entered, taking Adam perforce along with her. They were in one of the most luxurious and beautiful rooms he had ever seen, but very different from the ancient grandeur of the Avenida Palace. Here, everything was modern and costly. A great window wall of glass looked over the park, but the concierge quickly swept the gold brocade curtains across, then turned on the lights, which, again in contrast to the Avenida Palace, were soft but powerful. Arcangelo shut out the light of day at the Ritz with gold brocade. In the Avenida Palace, Dr. O'Keefe was barricaded with white shutters and dark green damask. Only Typhoon Cutter, standing at the window that overlooked the harbor, seemed to have no fear of being seen. Or was that the entire explanation? The beds were covered with the same rich material as the curtains. There was a chaise lounge padded with pale green velvet, and pale green velvet easy chairs at the round table in the small alcove. The floor was carpeted in what seemed to Adam to be gold velvet. Modern paintings hung on the walls, and the telephones, one for each bed, were lemon yellow. Polly let go his hand, flung herself at the concierge, shouting, "Arcangelo!" and burst into loud sobbing. He held her closely, not speaking, rubbing gently between her shoulder blades, kissing the top of her head, waiting until the sobs had spent themselves. At last she looked up at him, saying, "We must speak English, because of Adam, or Spanish, if you like." "He's fine with Spanish, not Spanish," Arcangelo said absently, still soothing her. "French might do," Polly babbled. "I think Adam's all right with French." "English will do, no, Bame," Arcangelo said gently. "Hush now, Polyxena. Hush." He cupped her chin in his hand and looked at her, at the red marks showing where the blindfold and the gag had been. "What have they done to you? What has happened?" "Hold me, Arcangelo," Polly said. "Tell him, Adam." Arcangelo sat down on one of the pale green velvet chairs and pulled Polly up onto his lap. Her long legs dangled to the floor, but she leaned against him as though she were a very small child. He looked inquiringly at Adam, and now Adam was able to look back at the concierge, at a dark, powerful man, perhaps in his 50s, though it was difficult to tell, with a nose that looked as though it had been broken. The story Typhon Cutter had prepared was for Dr. O'Keefe. It did not work here in this luxurious room at the Ritz for a Portuguese concierge whom Polly treated as though he were a beloved uncle. "Tell him, Adam," she said again. It was on the plane from Madrid to Lisbon. Polly went into the washroom and didn't come out, and when the steward opened the door, she wasn't there. He looked at Polly. "What happened?" She shuddered again and reached frantically for Arcangelo's hand. "Not if you don't want to," he said gently. She shook her head against the blue of his uniform. "No, it's all right. He came in and grabbed me. The steward. He put his hand over my mouth before I could yell. He had some kind of canvas sack with air holes into it, and he put me into it. The washroom was so small that I couldn't fight or kick, and he was so strong. And he stuck something sweet and sickly smelling on my nose, and it made me all sleepy. He gagged me, too. Did I tell you? And it was all dark and horrible, and I was much too asleep to try to wriggle or anything, and I think I was just dumped on the top of the bag of luggage. And then I was in a car, and then in somebody's house, I don't know where, because the curtains were drawn. They took off the gag and gave me something to drink, and it put me all the way to sleep, and then I woke up and I tried to get out the door, but the door was locked, and I started to cry. And then that man, the one who drove us, Adam, came in and told me to be quiet, and I wouldn't get hurt, and I knew he meant business, so I was quiet. And he just sat there and watched me, and I sat there and watched him, and I had a headache, and he wouldn't talk or tell me where I was or anything. And then he put the gag back on and blindfolded me and told me not to move or I'd get hurt, so I didn't even move when I felt the car start. "Arcangelo, please call the embassy for me." She climbed down off the concierge's lap and went and sat in one of the beds near the phone. "Get them, hello, and ask for Joshua Archer. I don't want the switchboard people to hear my voice." Adam felt that he ought to assert himself, now that Polly's tears were spent and her hysteria gone. "Polyhymnia," he started firmly, but she interrupted him. "You promised never to call me that," Adam sighed. "Polly, I don't know why you want to call the embassy, but I think the thing for us to do is get back to the Avenida Palace to your father. Or, if you want to use the telephone, call the hotel and ask to speak to him." Polly looked at him as though she were a teacher trying to explain something to an unexpectedly stupid student who fails to understand a very simple problem. "Adam, Daddy won't go back to the Avenida Palace without me. He might be at the embassy. If he isn't, Josh will know how to get a hold of him and what to do. We can't go back to the Avenida Palace alone anyhow, and Arcangelo can't get away to take us. Please, call, Halo." Sighing again, Adam waited while the concierge asked for the American embassy, then for Mr. Archer, then, several times over, and evidently to different people, for Mr. Joshua Archer. Finally, he held out the phone to Polly. Josh, she said, it's me. I'm at the Ritz. Yes, he's here. Well, he was in the car with me when we were dumped here. I was blindfolded. I don't know. She looked accusingly at Adam. Were you at the Avenida Palace with Daddy? Yes, Adam said. Why didn't you tell me? You've hardly let me finish a sentence, you know, Adam reproved her. Polly scowled at him. If you were at the Avenida Palace with Daddy, why did you leave? I can't tell you now, Adam said. Polly, I'm half dead with sleep. This was not only clever evasion. It was hot now that the sun was higher in the sky, and the air conditioning unit in the room was not turned on. The heat pressing down on Adam seemed to be pulling on his eyelids. I haven't had any sleep for 3 nights. Polly turned back to the phone. Where is Daddy? Can you get to him? And tell him I'm all right? Okay, Josh. Yes. Arcangelo will answer. Okay, Josh. Bye. She hung up, turned back to Adam, demanding, Why haven't you had any sleep? Adam spoke with heavy patience. The last night I was in Woods Hole. There was a party that lasted till the kids put me on the plane for New York. Then we didn't sleep much on the plane to Madrid. That's 2 nights. Then last night I'd just gone to sleep when I was waked up. How were you waked up? How did you get in that car with me? Adam looked around the luxurious room. I can't talk to you now. I have to sleep. I have to think. Do you want some coffee? I've had coffee. Coffee can't keep me awake any longer. Do you want a shower or something? I've had a shower. All I want to do is sleep. Are you hungry? Polly, all I want to do is sleep. Polly looked at Arcangelo. Can he sleep here? Arcangelo nodded. We have to wait until Josh calls back. He could sleep for a while anyhow. Arcangelo rose and pulled the gold coverlet down off one of the beds. In a fog of sleep, Adam flopped down, not feeling the softness of the mattress, not even aware of his cheek touching the fine linen of the pillow. Though through a haze of sleep he seemed to hear the phone ringing, to hear voices, but he could not rouse enough to listen. He was engulfed in a black sea of slumber.